What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Female Bodybuilding Girls in Gear. I'm your host, Tommy Stiles. With me, Shannon, Seeley. Like, share, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, do all that good stuff. Help us grow the channel. If you could share it with your friends, tell your mom, tell your babysitter, tell your cousins, everybody that you know. If you find value in the podcast, drop a comment. Let us know what you like, what you don't like. We're here every week for the most part. Shannon, how we doing?
Doing well, T. Happy February.
It is today's Groundhog's Day.
It is. Look at first month of 2024 is already over. Can you believe that?
Done and dusted. Yeah, I thought it went quick. Everybody said it went long, but I was like, man, I barely remember it now.
Uh,
Um, but yeah, obviously the first month's out of the way. If you're listening and you're still rocking your New Year's resolution or you're having a good year, keep on trucking. If you're listening and you have fallen off, you're winning some days, losing some days, don't get discouraged. You can start winning more days. It just takes efficiency. Figure out why you're losing days and correct it over time. Progress over perfection. So it's a long year. I like to break it down into 1 month increments. That's how I tackle it. And then from there, I create short-term goals within the weeks and the days to stack wins towards what I'm working towards long-term. So last week's episode with Emily Schubert, which is up on YouTube. Check it out if you haven't watched. We were talking about gut health. So how are things with you this week?
Things are improving slightly. I had a couple doctor's appointments this week. The biggest thing that Emily and I talked about, this biggest thing I've been dealing with this week is just like really listening to my body. I have not had a great energy level week this week. Coach and I have definitely said right now we're doing 4 days of training max, don't push it. And that's been really hard because off season is like when we really want to lift heavy, put on the size, get fluffy and build that muscle. So it's been a little bit challenging and a little bit discouraging to that, but it's only 1 month gone out of the year. I still have 11 months to improve myself, and that's what just keeps me going. So hopefully by next week, when we talk again, everything will just keep looking up and better, and I'll just keep improving. So can't really complain. Besides the weather, I mean, I'm in Michigan, and now it is actually, I think it was like 45 today. We had a huge snowstorm on Tuesday, and it all melted, and now smells like spring outside. So let's hope the groundhog doesn't see his shadow.
What a holiday, Groundhog's Day. It has no effect on me out here, but I still root for him. Yeah, I think gut health is, every week I'm talking to someone new who's messaging me, where did you get your GI map? What did you find? What did you do? And while I like to give it, help and share my experience to help with awareness, it's not a one size fits all. The GI map is going to be the diagnostic testing you need to see what's actually going on inside your gut. Without that, you're just throwing darts in the wind. So without seeing what's wrong, you can't create a proper plan. Also, make sure you might have to seek out, an expert or someone who's proficient at not only reading them, but developing a protocol to help you address the things that are wrong, if there are things wrong. So, I have no problem being, having humility as a coach. And if I were to get something from a client who had a GI map that I didn't know what to do, I can raise my hand and say, hey, I don't know how to help you here. I can recommend people that do, but I'm not going to take something on that I'm not confident in, waste their time, their money, and, their health, because honestly, they're trying it sucks. Gut health being off is not fun. Anybody who's dealt with it knows that you will do whatever it takes to keep your gut health in a good spot if you've dealt with, any sort of issues. So, again, we're always sharing stuff to help with awareness, but I can't just tell you what I did and what supplements I took and you do that and everything will be fixed. It might not work like that. And honestly, it's not even about supplements as much as it is identifying the lifestyle habits that are causing issues too. You know, for me, it was fixing my sleep, getting my circadian rhythms back into some sort of order. So I have a bedtime, I have a wake up time. I don't always want to go to bed when I'm supposed to, and I definitely don't want to wake up when I'm supposed to, but sticking to it through the month of January has helped lower my stress load on my body, and my gut is still in a good spot, no bloating, weight's going up, food's still in a good spot. So slow and steady. You know, don't be too aggressive with anything you do. It's, you know, if you're taking the year off like you and I are, think about the big picture. Don't focus on one workout or one week too specifically. Like, think about the big picture.
Yeah.
So diverting from that, I thought it would be, you know, it's early in the year, the contest season is kind of getting underway with preps, but there's not shows. I think the Arnold is kind of the first big one that everybody locks in on, and that's 4 weeks out. People are starting to get excited. So you and I have both been competing and been bodybuilding, living the lifestyle full time for 10 years now. What advice would you give your younger self on how to stay more present during your competing career? Because I think it's easy to always look ahead and look to what's next. And then the next thing you know, boom, you're 10 years in and you're like, where did the time go? So
Yeah.
I try to
The
tell
biggest,
my younger clients how to go about this, because I don't think I did a bad job of it, but I also think I was so focused on getting to where I'm at now that I kind of breezed past some of my years.
yeah, and I know we preached about this on quite a few podcasts. I know you have on your numerous ones about first things first is you have to get out of your head, unless you're a genetic freak. Realistically, you're not going to go pro after the first time you step on stage. You're not going to go pro within the first year, within the second year. It's going to take a long time. So first thing I always tell people is get that out of your head. Don't set a timeline and say, hey, within 5 years I'm going to be pro. Instead, you look at your weekly things, and even minimizing. So what I usually do for when I start prep season, I go month to month. First I look at, okay, first month, okay, I'm going to be 30 weeks out. That's going to give me from 26 to 30 weeks out. I'll be there. What can I do that first week prep starts? That's going to put me ahead. I'm checking every box every day. I'm getting my sleep and I'm getting my supplements. Am I getting all my food in? And you do the day by day, the little consistent habits over time help you improve greatly for that long-term prep, for the end result. If you can check off those boxes and have perfect days for those first 4 weeks, and then you bring it over for your next month, you have 4 more perfect weeks. You've already had 8 perfect weeks in that prep. You are ahead of the game, and you're setting yourself up to be more successful at that show, instead of looking at the show and saying, I'm going to go pro at that show. No, it comes back to how you're building up your habits right now to be able to create your end result. So you have to look at, you can't, I'm going to try to say this without sounding like rude. We all have expectations and we all have goals that we want to achieve, but in order to achieve those, you have to start small. The smaller, the better. The smaller, more realistic goals that are going to help you keep on track for what you're going to intentionally try to achieve is going to set you up for more success, instead of saying, hey, I'm just going to do this prep, but you don't have that mindset and you're looking what you're going to do next month instead of being present of what you're going to do this current month. So you shouldn't rush the process. It's almost like, I read this one thing one time where it's almost like, and you might see this a lot, where like women like to decorate for fall in like August, or they decorate for fall in July. But you're literally pushing that season ahead to where it's when it's not supposed to be. It's almost the same thing with bodybuilding. Like you want to push ahead so much and step on that stage, but are you really ready? Have you put in the work you have for that day today and the day the next day? Because what happens over time is if you keep looking ahead and you're not looking in the present, you're going to miss out on those check boxes that you're supposed to be hitting every day in order to keep yourself consistent for your end result. So I always say, like, short term, I always look at short term. Obviously, the long term goal for a prep is going pro. You're going to step on stage. But I say short term goals, and I mean like your daily goal, your weekly goal. Like short term for me is usually within the first 4 weeks. So my short term goal for this prep right now is I'm getting on my checkbox. I'm getting on my sleep. Did I get my 8 to 10 hours? Did I get all my water in? Did I get my supplements in? Did I take my drugs the right time? Did I have my meals the right time? It's little shit like that over time that's going to make it or break it. I don't care if you hit your cardio perfectly for one day. That's great. Give me the next 200 days hitting your cardio. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where we set unrealistic expectations without realizing that we we can literally, we don't have to set expectations if we're just checking our daily habit boxes every day. If you do that every day, you're gonna nail it. You're gonna nail this prep. Doesn't matter if you win or lose, you did everything you could to be successful for that prep. Sorry, I'm gonna go on a rant, so I'm gonna end it there for now because I can literally vent about this for the next 40 minutes.
No, I think you're right on the money with I talk so much about short-term goals and habits and rituals, like I can't remember which podcast I've said it. I think I just said it with Dom yesterday, so it's like I'm having deja vu right now. But that truly is like I harp on it because it is, progression is important in every facet of your life. Your job, business, career, bodybuilding if you're doing that, relationships, your individual self-development it's all progression based. If you aren't progressing, that means you're complacent, and complacency is the fast lane to death while living. Everyone's going to die, but not everyone lives, to get philosophical with it. So I think that's a good reason to keep progression at the forefront of your brain. And the way you do that is, like you said, you create the short term, the wins, the boxes, the checking off the boxes daily, drinking all your water, getting your steps in, putting salt on your meals, making sure your meal prep's done if it's an issue for you, just setting yourself up to create solutions to problems that you have, because then you're going to feel good about yourself and you're going to feel good about where you're going, because you're doing what you can in the present. And truthfully, I think that's the biggest fix to mental health issues is just owning where you lack and fixing it. And boom, mental health's fixed. You might have some bad days, but it's not hard to feel good about yourself when you're actively checking out boxes, doing things that make you feel good about yourself.
Yeah.
I think within the statement of, being present as a competitor, what I would probably have done a little bit differently is given myself maybe a week post show to like, not fuck off, not, I checking the boxes and getting back on a plan is easy for me, but I think I would have just taken more time to sit and reflect on the prep, maybe looked at more pictures, maybe documented things a bit more about what I learned, not only to help others, but just to like get that out of like to actively do it for myself. Because I remember every show was like, I already had plans for what's next before I was leaving the night show, before I even had my shower. It was like, all right, I remember being done in 2017 and being like, I'm going to take 18 off and I'm going to do the Michigan in 2019 and I'm going to do junior nationals. And right there, I already started planning it all out. Like, how many weeks is that? What time would I start prep? Where am I going to be living? What gym am I going to train at? Like all these things are running through your head and you haven't even got the tan off yet. So I think, a way to work on being present and grateful for the whole life that you get to live is, while I think planning and having big goals in the future is very important, I think it's okay to like sit still for 7 days or however long you need. You can still be working towards the bigger picture without necessarily having the bigger picture all mapped out. And I say that because that's what I'm doing right now. After Nationals 24 got pulled from as my next, goal, I don't have a show right now. I have an idea. I have ideas of how I might go about 2025, but right now I'm doing exactly like you just described. I'm just focusing on checking my boxes every day and being a good bodybuilder. I know that I'm getting better if I do those things. And then when it comes time to solidify a game plan, then I will. But it's probably the first time since 2015 that I've done that. Everything has always been calculated for me. Even like in the pandemic, it was like, all right, that show's canceled. I'm going to do this show. All right, that one got canceled. All right, let's do this show. And then eventually I was just like, this year's a wash, forget it. But I always have to know what I'm working towards. And this is the first time where I don't concretely know what I'm working towards. I'm just working.
Yeah. A good point too is like, so when I'm in my off season versus on season, I have different mental states for being present. And I don't know if you're like this. I know like when off season, my mental state for being present is a lot easier for me because I'm not. I have food. I'm happy. I'm fat. Like it's a lot easier to think and focus. Okay, but I'm fluffy. Okay,
Yeah, I
but
got it.
but in my on season when I'm in prep, being present's very hard because your brain's all over the place. My mind is 24/7. Did I get my posing in? Did I get my water in? Did I practice this? When's my next meal? Did I stretch today? It's a lot, especially because you're already so low in deficit. Like it's very hard to keep focus. So I always make sure when I'm being present in my actual prep and trying to enjoy the process is I always make sure I take an hour out of every day of my prep when I'm in prep that I do something that's completely away from bodybuilding, whether it's just grounding myself, being outside, have my phone away from me, have technology away from me. But I think that's very important too, is to, even though we all live and breathe bodybuilding, and most of the people listening here do, it's very important for you to also distance yourself for a moment and take into account, hey, wow, what a life I live that I'm able to pay and participate in bodybuilding and have, be able to enjoy this. I just started doing that about probably like in 2018. I just started making sure that I take a little bit of time away from my day of bodybuilding just to be grateful that I am able to bodybuild and I'm able to, we say it's suffering, but these countries that people are scrounging up food, like I'm happy that I'm able to eat my 4 ounces of chicken and 75 grams of green beans for my next meal. It's one of those things where the more miserable that you feel, the more grateful you have to be and be like, hey, you know what? Somebody has it rough out there. Competing is not a sacrifice. It is a choice. It is a privilege. It is one of those things that you are choosing to do. So I'm grateful for that. And that's why I always take that moment of gratitude every time I'm in prep and be like, wow, I'm thankful that I have the money, I have the health, I'm able to compete and enjoy this sport. And so I think being present can mean a lot to different people, especially in different seasons. But it's one of those things that you have to just like it's just exactly what if in an hour I die? Okay, I'm present right now. It's one of those things you have to also think about that, especially as you age with the sport of bodybuilding, keeping your health in check, being present with your friends and family because I mean we're all human, we're all gonna die, who knows when. So keep that in mind too. I know I'm not trying to get a little dark here, but I mean it's real. It's the reality.
No, I don't think it's dark when it's the truth. I mean, you have to be okay with mortality. You have to be okay with mortality, not only for yourself, but for your family, your loved ones, your pets. I see
My
people
chickens.
who haven't done the prep work for losing a dog when in reality, it's like dogs have lifespans. And if we're lucky, we get them for the full lifespan that that particular breed may have. If you haven't prepared yourself for the loss of that animal at a certain point, that's on you. That's your fault. If you fall off and go into a deep state of depression, that is 100% your fault because all the literature's there, all the warning signs, everything, and same with humans. Like, while sadness is an emotion you should feel, I don't understand letting your life go to complete hell when someone that's an older, like in their 80s, passes away. Like that's what's supposed to happen. We're supposed to die at a certain point. So to me, that person won because they got a full life. They lived past the life expectancy. And if they were suffering, like you should be grateful that like their suffering is now over because at some point it's like, what are people even doing here? They're just, it's a lot. That's a different topic, but yeah, it all comes down to just being aware and being having the hard, honest talks with yourself, and that's what creates the beauty of gratitude. Gratitude is built off of awareness.
Yeah.
If you're aware of like people are drinking puddles to get water and they're eating food out of the garbage, then you're not going to complain about being hungry in a contest prep for your prima donna bodybuilding show. You're just gonna be like, oh, I'm hungry, whatever. So I think I talk about perspective a lot. I don't think I'd be able to tap into perspective as much as I do if I hadn't, made my life bodybuilding for the last 10 years and based every single decision off of it. So, yeah, I think I just, it's good to point this stuff out because it's easy to have tunnel vision. Like you said, the seasons are, we're having this conversation in off season for both of us, and we're both months removed from prep in the stage. But I guarantee in a contest prep, you and I having this conversation right now would sound a lot different. It would be a lot more like intense, and like you could probably feel the energy off of both of us just the way we are in prep. So you have to throttle down. Prep is life in the fast lane. It's the pedal is matted, you're passing cars, you're moving. Every hour you're conscious, you are going. Off season is still going in the same direction, but I like to think of it as you're in the right lane and you're on cruise control. You're just doing what you need to do, checking your boxes every single day. There might be some periods where you like pass and sprint, but for the most part, it's just about maintaining consistency. That's progression in the off season. It can't be like you're going, and then you pull off on the side of the road, and that's 2 months. It's like you just lost 2 months of your off season, and now not only did you lose 2 months, you have to start back up, which is a lot harder than just keeping going. So, even the smoothest preps, the most perfect prep you could have, like I had a pretty good prep. I'm not going to lie. I had 1 day in 26 weeks where I was like, damn, I am feeling it. Other than that, it was business as usual. But even the smoothest preps take a toll on your body. Your GI system takes a hit. Your personal life takes a hit in some way, even if you have the best support system, because to achieve great things in bodybuilding, there's a lot of selfishness involved in spurts. So in the off season, that might mean being less selfish and reestablishing some relationships that in your next prep, you're going to kind of just put on the back burner, and your time is going to be spent doing the prep things that you need to do. So, it's interesting now that everyone has these grandiose plans when they get into competing. Mentioning pro cards before they've ever hit the stage. You can't do it without you can't do it without passion, one, but you can't do it without thinking about the things we're talking about, because we're able to talk about it because we've lived it. I've lived through, different careers that didn't support bodybuilding. So I had to adjust and find ones that did until eventually I'm doing my own thing. Relationships definitely come and go in bodybuilding. You might move house, you might move states. There's a lot of things that can happen, and you have to pivot and adjust and figure out how to make bodybuilding fit into life too. And I think it sounds cool on paper to say, yeah, I'm going to compete and I'm going to compete for my pro card. And that's great. You should do those things if you have those goals, but understand that there's a lot that goes into it, a lot more than just saying that's what you're going to do.
See, I'm going to hold you right there, because the only downfall I will say is, and we've said this before, T and I are in our 30s. When we started bodybuilding, social media was just starting out. It wasn't huge. Instagram, we got in the Instagram background maybe with 2014, 2015. Back then, it wasn't like, there wasn't a bunch of information on social media. It was one of those things where I would be checking out books. I would be watching documentaries, or I'd have to go on the old school bodybuilding forums just to find legit people to talk to that knew the sport. And it was a very old school technique, especially, I followed Dorian Yates and John Meadows, and those were the people that I lived vicariously through with the training techniques. And unfortunately, with today's influencers and social media, it's almost like this younger generation, everyone wants a pro card, everyone wants to compete. Great. I'm happy to see the sport growing, but it's almost like they don't understand. And this is for these younger listeners, you guys don't understand, like, just because somebody that you follow competes doesn't mean that it's easy, doesn't mean that you can just jump into this and go pro automatically. I met so many people, even in my gym, kids under 20, and say, oh, I'm going to go pro within the next 2 years. I'm mind blown, because there's so much misinformation that you guys just think that you can just jump on, do 1 or 2 shows and take a couple drugs and go pro. It is not. Personally, if that's your thought process, that's completely disrespectful to the sport. I think that's completely disrespectful. If you step on stage and say, I'm going pro next show. At the same time, like, you have to understand, like, I like to look at like where it started. Like, I'm one of those things, like, let's say I'm into soccer, I'm into bodybuilding, I want to look at like how it started. Who were the people that founded it? How did it grow? I'm very interested in even just the history of it and seeing how it's grown. Where nowadays most people don't even know who Dorian Yates is. So, people know bodybuilding for Arnold and pretty much it. And I'll name off all these bodybuilders and they have no idea. So it's very important that you're not just doing this as a trend. There's going to happen. You're going to have people that trend, but this is a very, like, for people like Tommy and I, this is a very, like, this is our life. Like, this is, we see people come and go all the time, but if you're really in it for the long run, like, you're never, get out of your head that you're going to be a hotshot bodybuilder living and making the money and living in a mansion in Malibu, because that's not going to happen. 90% of us are literally just working day jobs. Bodybuilding is our second job. And we're just enjoying the process. So it's disheartening to me. And I think it's insulting sometimes when I have people that want to go pro, but they don't understand the longevity and what it really takes and what it takes mentally, physically, environmentally. Your life literally has to be bodybuilding 24/7 in order to, if you want to get to the Olympia, if you want to go pro, it is a very intense hobby. I'm going to say it's a hobby that's a job, basically. It is a hobby, but it is a hobby that works job hours, basically. It's a full-time job, but it's considered a hobby because you don't get paid for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it opens the door to opportunities that you can create cash flow for. But again, that takes
Like, look,
work.
yeah,
That takes
like you and I.
ambition.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like you do what you love now, and you're in the sport of bodybuilding, and you coach people for a living, and you only coach. Me, I coach and personal train, and I'm a bodybuilder. But we both didn't get here overnight. I mean, like, I used to be a bank teller. I worked all these other jobs until I had established clientele to be able to pay my bills. Same with you. You were a firefighter. You did all this other shit until you were able to, get to where you are. And it's so satisfying. But I mean, this is T and I have been in the sport for over 10 years now, so it's not like, I mean, I just can comfortably now say, hey, I can live off my nutrition coaching clients and personal training clients and not have to do anything else. And I mean, that was 10 years of me trying.
right. Yeah, no, I mean, nothing worth having comes overnight. You're going to have to work hard, not only on the X's and O's of getting good at bodybuilding, but, building a career, building a business is almost like a whole separate entity on top. Like, that's the easy stuff. Training, eating your meals, prepping your food, doing your that stuff's easy. That's autopilot. The other stuff is like, if there's areas you're deficient in and that you lack, like if you're not good at talking on a camera, you have to figure out how to do that. If you're not good at making posts, you have to figure out how to do that. And in this climate, you're not going to get, someone's not just going to find you because you have a good physique and then be like, you know what, I'm going to pay this person. That doesn't happen anymore. You have to have value. You have to be able to move the needle for a company. And if you can't, then you might have a great physique and great genetic potential, but we know a lot of people that are broke that have pushed or pursued bodybuilding for a long time and they're struggling. And I just saw the writing on the wall with my own physique when I was younger. Like, I'm never the Olympia. I'm not going to be on a magazine cover, but I am going to make a career out of this and I'm going to be a full-time bodybuilder. And it happened over time, but it wasn't easy. So I don't even know what the original topic was, but it's definitely good to talk about because we did a podcast yesterday, Dom and I, and I've done 9 shows. I've won my class a couple times and I've won an overall one. So I've won one show outright. Other times I won my class, whatever. Won one show. And the question was that I asked him that we talked about was, if you knew that the outcome was that you were going to lose, would you still go through with the prep? And the answer for me was yes, I would, because I learned something. I learned so many things every time I prep. Losing teaches you lessons. Winning doesn't. Winning is what you adjust for and you're pursuing it and you're going after it harder and harder and harder. But at the end of the day, I've done preps where I knew I wasn't going to win. I knew I wasn't going to win at USA's. My goal was first callouts. Now there will come a time when I know that I have enough, muscle size, conditioning, all of the criteria that I think like, okay, I can go there and I can win. And if I lose, then I lose. But there's preps I've done where I knew that I was not going to be the overall winner based off of life circumstances. With Dusty stuff in 2021, I was just trying to get to the stage. That was just a matter of perseverance and don't quit and finish what you started type mentality. It had no thoughts did I have that I was winning because not one thing was going right. I was not sleeping. I was stressed. I was focused more on him than bodybuilding. I was just going through the motions. So, you know, I think a lot of these young people who have these grandiose plans, that's something I'm going to start asking them. And if you're listening, ask yourself, if you knew that you were going to lose, would you still go through with the process? Because that'll tell you right there whether you're focused on the shiny social media fame, the likes, the shares, the attention, the comments, or if you're actually someone who values the process. Because that is what I value the most, is, you know, what I learn about myself through the course of every prep, or through the trenches of the off season of just sticking to the same things over and over and over. That's the win, because that translates to real life. But if you don't love the process and you're doing this for the outcome, you're gonna be disappointed a lot, unless you're someone who's just genetically blessed and is good right off the rip, which they're out there. But you'll find out pretty quick if you're one or not. You know, I've, like I said, 1 overall win out of 9 shows, a couple class wins here and there. But at the end of the day, you're gonna lose, unless you're someone that's good and has an easy climb up the ladder. You're gonna lose more shows than you do. So what is gonna keep you coming back doing this over and over and over? Something to think about.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, it's one of those things, you're either gonna have the mindset or not. I know so many people who've started preps 2 weeks in, can't deal with it. And you'll know, it's one of those things, like, it is, I truly believe every single person in the entire world should do one bodybuilding prep. Just because I remember getting through my first bodybuilding prep and my first true bodybuilding prep, not when I was doing macro shit with my first coach, my first true bodybuilding prep. And I remember coming out of there, didn't do the best of my show, didn't do the worst, but I remember feeling so proud of myself because I didn't cheat on my diet. I followed the protocol exactly how it was supposed to. And I felt so empowered after, be like, wow, my mental strength is so strong if you literally just put your mind to it. You guys hear it all the time. If you put your mind to it, you can do it. It is so true, and it is so empowering to realize how strong and the capable your mind is if you really get in sync with it. And I think that's what a lot of people miss too, is when they're in prep or when they're in something that they're trying to achieve and your mind starts fighting with you. It's one of those things, are you going to attach with your mind and correlate and go together and create your goals? Or are you going to fight it, and you're going to fight that? And when your body tells you, I can't do one more, and your mind says yes, and you're just giving up, that's how you know that your mind is overpowering you and you're weak. I'm going to say that if you can overpower your mind and push through that damn pain, you know that this sport is for you, your mindset is right. But if you give up every time, if you fail out at every step because your mind told you couldn't do it, but your body's saying yes, no, this sport is not for you. It is extreme. As T always says, it is a very extreme sport. It's a very unhealthy sport, very extreme sport, very, very amazing sport to show your mental fortitude, but not everyone has it. I'm gonna say it right now. It's not everyone has it. I mean, if you want a true like non-biased opinion if you're gonna make it or not, go on what you guys do it all on Muscle Media Network. Put your picture up there when they do the body judgment things. And T will tell you right there, yes, you have it, or no, this is going to be a hobby for you. You're never really going to go. And I value bodybuilders' opinions. That's how I started in the sport. I was told, yeah, I could make it in the sport, so I did it. But not everyone's going to be able to make it in the sport. And I'm sorry, that's just the hard truth. You're not going to be genetically gifted. You're not going to be able, if you don't learn the training intensity, if you don't learn these tools that you have to learn yourself. T and I didn't learn all this stuff. We're self-taught for a lot of stuff. We learned it through the experience. We learned it with this 10 years of knowledge that we've gained. This is all trial and error, but you don't learn this overnight. And it's one of those things that if you stick with the sport, you're going to learn and learn and learn. I was just telling someone, like, even how we were talking about growing our businesses, like from when I started my business coaching way back in the day, my templates, my website, everything's changed because as you progress and you learn what works and what doesn't work. The same thing with bodybuilding. You have to be really in tune with your mind, but you can't fight it, and you got to work with it in order to be successful in the sport.
Yeah, I think, when I critique people, it's more of, it's just easy to look at someone and be like, hey, you need size. The only way you're going to add size is if you stick with this for a lot of years.
Yeah.
Dusty said something that still shines to me today. It was, I was 6 years into competing and had already done like 4 shows. And I remember on a check-in, he responded to me and he's like, you know, you actually look like a bodybuilder with your shirt off now. Before it was just like you look like a guy who lifted weights, who did shows, but now everyone can tell that you're a bodybuilder no matter where you're at. That's true. Like that, I remember like I was just the guy that had a cooler of meals and a gallon jug. And if someone asked, you know, eventually it might come up like, oh yeah, I do, or I've competed or I've done shows. And now it's anywhere I go, you know, I think because competing is more known, that, you know, people are aware that competing is a thing. It's that guy competes, or yeah, he competes, or hey, big man, or hey, like it's annoying most times. Like I don't do what I do to get recognized and to be validated, but I'm very aware that in my world of bodybuilding, I still view myself as small because the people that I aspire to look like and be, and you know, they're freaks. They're massive. But in the normal world, I'm a very large human in any setting that I go into. But the point of that, me telling you that, is that it took 6 years of consistency to get that look. Whereas now I have the same conversation with younger people. I'm like, hey, it's cool that you want to compete, but understand right now, as it stands, if I walked past you in a grocery store, I wouldn't know if you have a gym membership or not. I might be able to guess and be like, oh yeah, dude might work out here and there, because that's just the reality of it for most people. So you know, when I critique a physique, it's mostly just, hey, you need size, which you need years to attain the size, even with gear. That's, you know, the gear thing, because we're very open about it. The only time I didn't talk about it was when I was a firefighter, and you know, I would have lost my job for admitting it. But you know, when someone says I'm going to take X amount or this, and this, it's like you've heard all the information, so you're at least aware there. That's more than I had. But have you actually conceptualized acquiring all that, drawing all that up, taking all that over time? Have you conceptualized what you're going to do if your blood work's off or if your blood pressure starts getting high? Have you conceptualized the mental effects that come from being on compounds year to year to year? Because it does happen. Anybody that says it doesn't is naive and might take fake shit. There's a lot more that goes into it than just saying I'm going to take X and X compound and I'm going to do this, and this. Like, you have to learn to pivot when things are happening along the way. It just kills me, like, because there's so much information about gear available now, which is a good and bad thing. People just talk about it as if it's the same as taking pre-workout. And it's like, oh, there's a ton of awareness that comes with it. I can guarantee right now, if I wasn't a bodybuilder, I doubt I'd get blood work. I doubt I'd worry about it until someone said, hey, you should get blood work because you're like 40 or something. You know what I mean? But I'm getting GI maps. I'm getting blood work. I'm checking my blood pressure 2 times a week. I'm checking my blood glucose 2 times a week. All things, I'm basically my own advocate. So while I'm doing a lot of things that are unhealthy for me in a roundabout way, it's also made me do a lot of things that are beneficial for me, because I'm going to catch anything before it, you know, gets too far. But yep, like all the health supplements, have you conceptualized all the money you're going to spend on health supplements to mitigate all the risks that you're doing when you're taking gear? And I know the answer is no. Most people have not, because I didn't either, but I just got into it and I never stopped. I just always wanted to keep going. And when it wasn't, and then it became every decision, like, I need to have money for these compounds and these health supplements. And then it was like, I need to earn more money so I can afford growth hormone, and that can be a part of my life. And there's all these little steps that you're going to create along the way. And I think, you know, just bringing the awareness to it, to not only stay present within the process and enjoy it, because it is enjoyable. I don't want to scare anyone away, but at the same time, like, it's work. It's a lot. Like, it's a lot to make every decision for a decade straight towards bodybuilding, basing where you live, where you move, the kind of car you drive, because you might have to drive 40 minutes to the best gym. All of these things factor into, like, if your goal is to actually turn pro. So just something to chew on for people. I think, you know, I've never been one to shoot down big goals. But, you know, I had a client tell me he wanted to quit his job and just do bodybuilding in an update 2 weeks ago. And I said, what are you going to do about it? You vocalized it. Now do something. And I didn't give him anything else. I just said, do that. And then his next check-in, he told me that he moved back to Denver because that was the best bodybuilding atmosphere that he'd ever been in. He's training at Armbrust. And I was like,
Okay.
that is how you do things. If you want something, you just act. Obviously,
Yes.
everyone has different situations. Maybe they couldn't just move in a week, but that's something I did. I decided I
Yep.
wanted to move. 4 weeks later, I was in Arizona. So if it fits your situation and you're able, don't stall. Figure it out, make it happen. But I shared something on a post recently, and it's just, this is how I look at it now is, you know, if you're not willing to do whatever it takes, then you don't have what it takes. That's all there is to it. And I know as a female, there's definitely conceptualizations you've had to make. Like, it's easy for a female to say, well, I'll just take Anavar and then I'll win my next show. And it's like, have you actually thought that through of what that, like, have you thought through what you're going to do if you start seeing side effects? Are you going to stop taking everything? Because, you know, we talk about the risks, but there's a lot of good things that come from PEDs for females that you guys like. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
pumps, cap delts, the leanness,
There's so much positive and negative. And like, I will say this, and I preached this before, the younger you start in the sport, you have to make sure that you are present with your health currently, but you're also looking at your long-term health, because I 1,000%, if you start bodybuilding when you're 18 years old, I don't care if you're a male or female, you do not know when you're 18 years old if you do not want kids in your future. I'm going to say that now because nobody is a teenager typically sees dreams of being a mom or a dad when they have all these goals, okay? So I always say that when you get into the sport, or you get into anything that's really going to affect when you're taking androgenics or PEDs, you have to give yourself goals, but you have to give yourself a threshold boundary that you're not going to surpass, because you're respecting yourself and you're respecting your future health. And that is one reason that I'm such an advocate for that, because I'm a mom, but I'm still a bodybuilder. And I've been able to do that because I made sure that when I started my gear protocol, I made sure that I would come off every year. Yes, I love being lean. Don't get me wrong. I love being lean. And I hated for the first 6 years of my off season, I was fat. I was a big girl and I hated that. But now, like, going into it, learning how to come on and off and monitor my blood health and, you know, get my menstrual cycle in my off seasons, allowing myself to be fertile if I want to have another child. That is a blessing because I still have not fucked up my health to the point where I am able to still have that choice if I want to become a mom again or not. And I think that is the biggest thing that I see these younger competitors doing is they rush into all this stuff. They take too many drugs, and then the men become infertile, the women become infertile, and then you literally have blown your chances of, you know, fulfilling your life. And I'm not saying it's there are bodybuilders, and most bodybuilders don't want kids. It is a huge deterrent when you're trying to make your goals, you know, your life goals. But there are a number of us too that are moms, and we make it work. And it is possible that, yeah, when you're 18, you don't know if you want that decision, but you have to when you start this sport. There are some, even though T and I just talked about short-term goals, there are some stuff you have to think long-term with your
right.
long-term side effects, your long-term health. There is some stuff that you have to, when you get introduced to those PEDs, you have to understand. You need to look at the sourcing. You need to look at the side effects, because just like when we had Emily on last week, like we talked about how some drugs affected her differently than me. It's not one size fits all. So you have to be very knowledgeable with that. You do not talk to your gym bro and ask what their cycle is and copy it. Do not do that. Do not do that. Do not buy something from the gym bro. Do not do any of that shit. You have to educate yourself, because if you do something wrong too soon, too early, you can permanently fuck up your hormones, where you're not going to need testosterone for competing. You're going to need testosterone to actually sustain your lifestyle and actually your health long term. So think about that, okay? That's the biggest thing, is just don't rush into this. Don't take shit that you don't know. And really, really educate yourself, okay? Just because influencer X, Y, and Z are telling you this stuff, like, are they accredited? Are they knowledgeable? Do they just go on for the likes? Are they, you know, where are they getting their resources from? If I'm doing something really like probable or like numbers or like really like, you know, a stats thing on like my social media, in the bio or in my comments, are literally put like the URL where I found it or whatever citation, just so that way people are like, oh, she's just pulling this out of her butthole. No, I literally this is the, the encyclopedia, or this is where I got this information from. Because I think that's very important, is as much as the technology and the computer and all that stuff is so easy to just get information. I'm an old school like book. I like to go to the library and get all the freaking books I can and just research the stuff. And I think that's the biggest thing, is self-educating yourself. I think is the number one most important thing you can do in the sport. I mean, there's 7 different techniques to grow your quads. There's a million different techniques to grow your body, but you have to find what's best for you. And it's not going to be by listening to an influencer that, has 7 million followers that literally just sells makeup on the side, something like that. It's just, you have to make sure that who you're surrounding yourself with is going to help you be accessible to your goals, and not just feeding you bullshit so that you can buy their shit and then they can make money and you still look like crap 2 years later, where they able to pay for their second, Botox injections or something.
Yeah, it is a thing. I mean, credibility is a huge thing. Experience is king.
Yeah.
Maybe not only with self, because someone might have really good genetics and they don't have to go through the lengths you might have to, but if they've built others and they have a book of, people that they've trained or coached, and they've posted transformations, and you can talk to these people and they are willing to recommend them, or they shout them out, that probably tells you a good bit about that individual of where they stand with the information that they're sharing. When I share my experiences, I share, my ups and my downs. And I think that is my strength, is that I do have experience. But I also have humility, in the sense of I don't try to act like I'm the smartest guy in the world at tables with people that are much smarter than me. I try to surround myself with people smarter than me so I can keep absorbing information and learning. But the thing about information in today's climate is, be very careful with how you're looking for information and what your mindset is, because it's easy to look for information that confirms what you want to hear, like confirmation bias. So if I want to believe something, I can find a study or someone that said what I want to hear, and then I can be like, that guy's right, I'm going with him. But I might just be like glossing over the things I don't want to know about. Ignorance is bliss, but in bodybuilding, if you're too ignorant, it will catch up with you at some point. So, I think you just have to remain real with yourself, and you have to keep a circle of people who will be real with you. I've looked at Bloodwork for people before, and who want to compete and who maybe have already been on PEDs or thinking about going on them, whatever the case is. And I've flat out told them, like, I cannot work with you because your blood work is trash.
Mm-hmm.
I do not advise competing and taking drugs for you. And whether they can go find someone that will take them on for the money, that's not my problem. It's like, it isn't for everyone. And if if you're older and blood work wasn't as talked about and as available to you 10 to 15 years ago as it is now, it sucks. Unfortunately, you're just in a different part of time. But if you were abusive to drugs for years, and we all have an expiration date with how many PEDs we can do over time before it starts to have negative effects more than positive effects. And the harder you push, the quicker that time is going to come. So that's something else to think about when you're younger, is like, are you just trying to get one cycle and look really good and be validated for the next few weeks? Or is this something you're looking to do for a long time? Because then you got to think about years. So that cycle now doesn't have to be the kitchen sink, because down the line, you need somewhere to go up to achieve the goals that you might have. Less is more as you go. But I won't shy away from telling people there will come times when you have to push, and boundaries do go out the window. That's my experience, and that's how I share it. Every person has to make their own decision, but and that's why dosing, I think, is arbitrary, because it's what someone can handle. It might be different. Genetically, I come from a line of alcoholics and drug addicts. That's my lineage. I have a good organs for drug metabolism. So I can handle a lot of gear, and my blood work is pretty freaking good. And that's how it goes. I've seen other people who TRT makes their blood work go haywire. That is a part of genetics. It's not just about muscle bellies and how you look on stage and your clavicles and your waist and all that. Drug metabolism, what your predispositions are to stress. I've seen some people that are absolute nightmares at the slightest amount of stress in their life, and that's going to affect their blood work. And you throw competing on top of that, it's just going to make it even more of a nightmare. People like that probably should think twice about competing. Truthfully, that's the reality of it. Some high-strung females that literally every single thing that happens that might be stressful is the end of their world. I wouldn't take on competing. But these are just some real world examples. I always keep it real with people. I'll tell them what they don't want to hear. If someone comes to me with a goal of being pro and they're well past that timeline when they probably could have achieved it, like if they're older, I have no problem saying like, hey, with all due respect, I don't think a pro card's in your future. I don't think you have what it takes to put in the consistency, and I don't think you have enough years left in your body. If you're in your 40s already, yeah, they have masters, but are you in a place where you can pursue that? For me, it's not blood work I have to worry about. It's joints in my body. It's the mileage, not the years. I'm 32, but my knee feels like it's 42. So, it's everybody's got something, and it's a game of chess. You gotta understand what you're playing with, and all, how much money do I have? How many drugs can I take over the course of years? What's my timeline there before my health starts to go the other way? How are my joints? Like, if I've been doing manual labor and hard shit all my life, that's going to have an effect on how hard you can train for how long. You gotta be very aware of the hand you're playing with. And I think when you're younger, you have tunnel vision. So it's easier just to be like, I'm going to compete, I'm going to take drugs, and I'm going to turn pro. And there's so much more to it. So, I think the coach you hire can kind of help make you more aware of all the other X factors. Like, how are you making money? You're probably going to need to make more money if those are your goals. Who are the people in your life? Because you got to be ready to cut people out. Maybe family, maybe the girlfriend that you've had for a long time, maybe a marriage. Truthfully, like maybe that's what it takes to reach that goal. That's the ugly side of bodybuilding that no one wants to talk about. It's not all glitz and glamour and hair and nails and shiny tans and oil. There's a lot of shit that goes into it.
Yeah, no, 100%. You guys, it's like one of those things where you want to compete. It's good. You have that mindset, and then it's like, we talked about this before. Do you have the base foundation? Have you even started with that? Have you tracked your eating? Have you gotten your water? It's little things that are going to show if you're going to excel, or if you're just in the sport just for fun, or if you're in it for the long term. It's so hard, because I love when seeing new people in the sport, but I also hate having to be the bearer of the bad news, and just like you, like, have to tell people, listen, like, you don't have it in you. Like, I want you to have it in you, but you don't. I mean, I get intake forms all the time from people, and I see it all the time, goal pro, but then I look at what they're doing, and they're not doing anything to even come close to even aligning with even doing a local show. So it's one of those things, like, if you're really serious, like, before you even inquire for a coach, because every good coach is going to have you do some sort of intake form. And if your goals don't align with what you're currently doing, I've had clients come back and I'll be like, hey, why don't you take a year and try to get your shit together first, and then come back and let's see if they're aligned a little bit more. But if you say you want to go pro, but you're drinking 6 days out of the week, we need to reevaluate that. Do you have a drinking problem? Do you rely on alcohol? I mean, I'm so anti. You're not. I mean, I'm so anti-alcohol for competing. If anyone here like is an Olympian and drinking alcohol like daily, that's like unheard of. So please, like, understand that too. Like, alcohol is a deterrent. It doesn't allow your muscles to synthesize properly. I've had people that train with me, and then they'll go home and be like, oh, I just had some vodka, I was all stressed out. I'm like, you literally just negated your entire workout. So make sure that these little behaviors, like if you smoke cigarettes and you want to compete, it's little stuff like that. Like, are you doing stuff that you want to continue doing but doesn't fall into the sport of bodybuilding? Is it going to work or is it not? yeah, I'm an avid weed smoker, but I've made it work with my sport to the benefit of it. So you have to find out what's going to benefit you, what's not, what's just going to cause detrimental issues, and fix that shit before you even are going to step on stage. That's the biggest thing is we can all say, hey, I want to be president, I want to be pro, I want to do this, but are you actually doing shit to follow that, or are you just saying that, but it's never going to happen?
Yeah, I think, you have to act like the thing that you want to be in order for it to happen. So, and that's not to say, if I deter someone from the pro dream, I don't say that you could never bodybuild. You can absolutely get something out of bodybuilding. You can get something out of prep. You can get something out of doing a show. That could be the best shape you ever get in your life. And having that show as the deadline and the thing that you're working towards every day is what makes you stick to it for 20 weeks. I'm all about that. Those are actually my favorite bodybuilders to work with because they're great. They're more grateful for the process because they haven't put this pressure on themselves that like, oh man, I got to win this show so I can try to go pro in 2 years. And it's like, man, you're where we started with this topic was about being present. Enjoy the process, enjoy the journey. And I can say that like, while I have put pressure on myself for the bigger picture a lot, that's where I thrive though. So I'm doing something that I benefit from. I'm not scared of an 80-week timeline. I thrive there. I'm just in a place now where I'm not putting one on myself at this moment, but I'm just enjoying bodybuilding every single day and checking my boxes. But, maybe you are a person who just wants to have a 75 to 80% off season. You want to train consistently because it's what you love to do. You want to eat some more off-plan meals with family and friends and do social things. And then you want to do a show every year as a way to get in shape. 20 weeks prep. That's like maybe you do one in June so you can be lean for the summer for part of it. That's a perfectly fine strategy. You don't have to get into bodybuilding with aspirations to turn pro. You don't have to get into bodybuilding and want to become a coach. It doesn't have to be what you do. I didn't get into bodybuilding to become a coach. I got into bodybuilding because I wanted to bodybuild. I was a firefighter and I thought I was going to do that career for 25 years. And the cards just happened to be like, man, a lot of people are asking me for help. Let me start helping them. And I started helping them. And then next thing I know, I'm charging a little bit of money. And then I'm personal training. And then it just keeps building. This wasn't my goal when I got into my goal was bodybuilding. That's all I cared about. I had no time to spare to give anybody else energy towards their plan. I was all about myself. My days were spent listening to podcasts, meal prepping, training. I mean, there was days I would go into the gym twice a day just because I wanted to be in the gym that much. And those are the best years. You don't even realize it then, but like when you don't have this external pressure on yourself that you do when you like work for yourself and you have like bigger ambitions than where you're at in that timeline, like those are the best times because there's just no pressure.
Oh yeah.
And,
When I first started bodybuilding, go on. When I first started bodybuilding, I lived with my parents. So like it was a lot less pressure, honestly, because I didn't have a mortgage to pay. Like, I mean, I bought my own food. I had to buy my own food, but like that was the biggest thing was going to college and then going to the gym after to get my training in and then go home. I mean, if you have that opportunity, like if you're younger and you're aspiring to be a bodybuilder, like take advantage of that right now. If your parents are gonna let you live in their house, do it. I mean, save as much money as you can. I'm gonna say that because the minute I went out on my own, I lived off credit cards to pay for my nutrition coaching for the longest time because I didn't have myself set up for that. And I mean that it took me years to pay off the debt because I just racked it all up because I did not understand the financial aspect of going out, not living with my parents, going on my own, becoming an adult, and then having the bills of bodybuilding. It is, I will say, like, I mean, people don't understand the cost of bodybuilding, especially when you're looking for quality subs, quality food. And even when I was in my 20s, I mean, I still for each show, I was probably spending a good $5,000 to $6,000 for local shows, just for the quality of food, the suits, the tan, the hotel, the travel, now national shows and even pro shows, it just gets more, the older you get, the more expensive it gets, the more knowledgeable you get, so you want better quality stuff. So it's like that 5,000 turns into 10,000. And then it's like, I mean, pros, I can, pro shows, it's 25 grand easily with the quality of supplements, the amount of supplements you have to take, the amount of drugs you have to take. I mean, it's one of those things, if you're in it for the long run, You either want a vacation every year or you want to do a nice pro show every year. That's kind of how I look at it.
I mean, essentially, yeah. And that's, that's like when I talk about conceptualize, like, okay, you come to me with the goal to go pro. Are you gonna do everything? If you're uttering the words, I want to go pro someday, you're not missing a check-in, you're not missing a meal. If it comes down to it, you're not having to ask me what the right move is in situations. I wasn't going on vacations the last 10 years. I think I went on one that wasn't related to bodybuilding.
Yeah.
Um,
My shows are my vacation. Like that's what I consider my vacation.
like I said, every single decision I have made since I was 23 years old was to be a better bodybuilder. Every city I moved to Royal Oak to go to Royal Oak Gym. I moved a mile and a half away from it, lived in an absolute dumpster of an apartment. But I didn't care about the living. I cared about the gym. That's where I needed to be to get better. I wasn't focused on buying a house. I wasn't focused on starting a family and all that. I was focused on bodybuilding. That, more than likely for you listening, is what your road will probably look like if you have aspirations to pursue the opportunity to achieve pro status over time. It's going to take a lot of licks. I talked to Matt Kuba on a podcast recently. He competed for 10 years before he won an overall, 12 years before he did his first pro qualifier. Think about that. 10 to 12 years of going at it every year. You got to love the process to keep doing that. Because, and I think today's mindset is like, if it doesn't happen first try or two, people are just, they're done. And then they blame politics or this or that. And it's like, you just quit before you earned your spot. It takes time. I mean, John Meadows, 16 years to turn pro. Ron Partlow, I forget how many, he took second place at a pro qualifier 4 times. Like, there's a lot of guys and girls that have just, went over and over and over until they finally earned it. It takes time. It's probably not going to happen in the system that you think it will. So, but if you're uttering the words, I want to be pro out loud to anybody, you better be doing things like at a sadistic level already. You already have a food scale, and you're probably someone that doesn't have any issues with food. You're gonna like own your shit if you're gonna say those words.
Yeah.
Cheating on the diet isn't something you do. It's not even something you think about doing. And if you do think about doing, you think about what a disgrace you would feel like to yourself if you did cheat. These are all characteristics of someone who would fit the bill for who's going to go pro, or who might have an opportunity to go pro. But I've had numerous people like check it, or the intake form says I'd like to go pro. Cool, let's focus on the first show or whatever first. Let's focus on this time and we'll work up to that. And the first check-in comes in and there's deviations. I couldn't do this, I couldn't do this, I missed this meal. Like right then and there, that first check-in tells me what I need to know. You're not going pro. You don't have what it takes.
Yep.
If you're not willing to do whatever it takes, you don't have what it takes. That can be the theme of this episode. Like to earn professional status in anything in this world requires extreme obsession and dedication, especially something like bodybuilding, because every single thing you do outside of the gym, which I guess is our sport part of it, matters. Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to go pro, but you sleep 3 hours a night and you go out clubbing and I got to go to this rave and this festival this weekend. So I missed 4 training sessions and I'm dehydrated because I was drinking and raving. And now I've lost 2 weeks of progress. You're not making those kind of decisions if you want to go pro. I promise you. I've met enough people in this game, and the serious ones, they're never not thinking about what they need to be doing to achieve that long term. I know that's how it was for you.
Yeah. Well, like even now, like think about it right now, like I am sick right now. Like I'm dealing with repairing my gut. I'm only allowed to train 4 days out of the week. For me, that is a mind fuck because I literally do not train less than 5 days a week right now. And I understand, like, as a professional now, like I pay my coach for a reason. I trust him. I have to stay the course. And even in my head, I'm like, oh, I could probably push it today. I'm feeling good. I know, like, as a professional athlete, you have to listen and play the game and listen to what your coach is saying to excel. Like, it is one of those things you have to, you have to be very neutral when it comes, especially when you're working with a coach. You don't know everything. Even though I'm a coach, I don't know everything. I trust my coach 1,000%. So I'm going to just trust him and he's just going to guide me through. But if I were, let's just say that I didn't listen to him and I decided to train, I trained 7 days this week. Okay. If I do that, how do I know that's going to how is that going to benefit me? It's not. It's probably going to make me more sick. I'm going to have another week that I'm going to have to take off and figure out this gut shit. And then, so it's one of those things that what one decision can literally derail you for weeks and even months. Same with like how I said, listening to your body is so important. If your body is telling you, do not fucking train, I don't care how you feel, I feel like shit, don't train. Do not train. It's so simple because that one wrong decision can literally set the wheels turning into a completely different direction and completely make you fall off course. So that is a one thing too, is being present is super, super important for that reason as well, because that one, if you're not present, you're just thinking about the long term and you just deviate from what you're supposed to do, it can be all over.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's a million and one examples we can give of how to apply, just doing what's best for you in the moment to, stay on the course of progress. People think pulling back is a negative, but it's never a negative if it's what's needed.
Yeah.
Forcing your hand is like, that's what gets you in trouble or makes an injury worse or makes a sickness worse. Maybe you went into the gym kind of sick with the sniffles and a scratchy throat, and then you forced yourself to train and now you have a fever.
Yeah.
Now you're not getting your food down. You feel like a slug. You're wasting potential PTO on just because you couldn't control your emotions enough to stay out of the gym and just let this thing run its course. That's just one example, but
and if you are here's another example, especially for the newbies here. If you're weight training 7 days a week, you need to stop. You need to stop. There is no, it drives me nuts when I have intakes that I train 7 days a week. I train this. Where's your rest day, bro? When are you allowing your body to recover? It doesn't impress me that you're pushing through and you're training every day till failure, because what's going to happen is you're going to actually overtrain and disrupt the way that your body functions, and then you're going to start seeing all these things spiral down too. So if you're listening to this right now and you're getting into bodybuilding, you're training 7 days a week, stop weight training 7 days a week. All right, you at least still need to have at least one. I have like 2, but at least take one rest day a week. Your body needs to rest. Like, you're never going to make gains or go anywhere if you are training 7 days a week hard. You can't.
Yeah. I think outside of a few freaks that I know that can do it, I would just, if someone told me they were training 7 days a week, my first thought is you don't train hard enough.
Yeah.
Because there was a time when I could do 2-a-days, and I don't remember if I did 7 days a week, probably not, because I was in the fire service, so I always had days off. But I remember, before I developed a standard of intensity that I have had for many years now, I could get away with doing more because I just never was taking it there. But I think, Dusty taught me a lot. And now it's like, I'm ready for my off. Like, we just did 3 in a row and tomorrow's an off. I'm like stoked. I'm like, dude, I don't have to train this Sunday. But by tomorrow afternoon, I'll be like, all right, I'm ready to train tomorrow. I'm good. And then after Monday's workout, Tuesday's an off day. And I'll be like, after Monday's a bear for us, like it's a 3-hour day. I'll be like stoked that Tuesday's an off day. That's how it should be. If you're training hard enough and executing properly and your intensity standards are where they should be to make progress, you should be looking forward to your off days. And then as your off day is winding down into the night, you should be excited to be going back to the gym. And if you're not, that's probably a cause of maybe you need to pull back. Maybe you're starting to get too much fatigue built up and you just need a couple extra days off. That's where you learn over time, because there was a time where I tried to ignore that too. And I would just beat myself into the ground. I would train myself to getting sick, and then I would be forced to take time off. And then I'd come back and it was always like an uphill climb to get back to where I was. And now it's like those warning signs. It's like the check engine light in your car. It goes on. I just listen to it. I don't lose progress. I gain because I listen to it and I never actually fall off course.
Yeah.
So that's a whole different topic, but we've been going for a little over an hour. If you're not willing to do what it takes, whatever it takes, you don't have what it takes. Write that down. Let that be your guide through February. And stay present. Smell the roses. Bodybuilding is, I will always be someone who speaks highly of bodybuilding, even when my time is done. It's given me the life I have. I'm very grateful for it. You know, you and I know each other because of bodybuilding. At this point, I don't know if I know anyone anymore. I'm friends with anyone that isn't in body. Like I think I've let go of all of the people I knew before bodybuilding because it's just, you know, time and
Yeah.
age. But yeah, like, share, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you liked, didn't like. I think we got a guest next week.
Yep.
Guest next week, and then we'll just keep them coming. So anybody you'd like us to try to get, drop it in the comments. No promises, but we will make an effort. So for Shannon, Seeley, and Tommy Stiles, female bodybuilding, girls in gear, we're out of here.